everyone, and welcome to my December wrap-up. I'm a little late. It's the beginning of January, but better late than never. I had a okay reading month in December to finish out the year. It was definitely me working towards just being able to hit that reading goal of 50 books for the year, which I did do, which is very exciting. I love when I hit that goal that I set for myself. But let's get into all of the books that I read in December. So I read 4 books in December. 2 were physical copies and 2 were audiobooks. It was an okay month, but 4 is usually around where I want to be, but I do prefer to get at least 4 physical copies done. But with holiday stuff, I didn't always have as much time to read as I wanted to. So the first book that I read was The Atlas Six by Olive E. Blake. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed this more than I expected to. I didn't really know what to expect when I went into this book because I feel like I've heard a lot of really mixed things. I feel like this is very much like a love or hate kind of book, and I didn't really know what side I was gonna fall on. But I do really like dark academia, and I love when dark academia kind of combines itself a little bit more with fantasy and includes more magic elements. Like Ninth House is one of my favorite books, and this felt a little bit like that for me, and so it was a good read for me. I will say with this, it is definitely different from what I was expecting. The magic system is interesting, and it just went in a very different direction than what I was expecting. Without getting into like any spoilers, I was definitely not expecting the ending for this book and the direction it eventually started going in, but I'm really intrigued to see where it goes from here. Some things that could be not great about this book, depending on who you are and what your interests are. One thing is the characters are not necessarily the most likable characters. In fact, many of them are unlikable. I can like that in a book, and I liked that in this book. They are all deeply flawed, and they are all not necessarily the nicest people or the greatest people, but I think that's part of what gives dark academia that vibe. You have these kind of like spoiled rich kids doing spoiled rich kid things, and they're not great people. Not everyone in this is like would fit that bill of spoiled rich kids. Some come from like very wealthy backgrounds, some do not, but many of them do. But they are all very ambitious in their own right, and want to kind of claw their way to their own successes and are not afraid to harm others in the process of that. I also found the twist at the end to be very interesting. They kind of hinted it a little early on in the book that there might be something going on with a particular character. So it was really satisfying at the end when you got to see it. I am definitely going to continue reading this series, hopefully soon. That's a big thing that I want to be doing this year, is when I read a book that I like and enjoy and I want to continue the series, I just want to finish it. Like, it's 3 books, it's a trilogy. Just finish the goddamn trilogy, Katie. Like, don't do this. I just don't have the next 2 books, but I do have some gift card money to spend, so I will probably pick up the next 2 books the next time I'm at the bookstore, so I can just finish it out, because I'm trying to finish the series I started this year. And then I listened to the audiobook of Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and I absolutely love this. This is my first Abby Jimenez book. I have one sitting here that now I know I need to read. I have yours truly. I enjoyed this so much. I talked about it in my best and worst books from each month, and it was my best book of the month. The way she writes romances are kind of what I want from a contemporary romance. I can sometimes struggle with some contemporary romance, and I've kind of found my groove with a couple of authors that I really like, and I think I'm gonna kind of add her to that list. That right now, for the most part, is Emily Henry and Ali Hazelwood are authors that I know I really enjoy in contemporary romance, and Abby Jimenez is gonna kind of jump into that list. This book is heavy at times. Like, it can be very heavy. It should definitely come with some trigger warnings. It is not just like a light, fluffy summer romance. And I don't know why I read this book in December. It just is that way. I read a summer romance book in December, it's fine. I mentioned this in my last video, but the fact that these characters are going through so much in their personal life just makes you want them to like find the success romantically so much. And I also think that the way that this book kind of dealt with trauma and trauma from families and dealing with trauma and how we deal with our past trauma, we think about relationships and how do we do that in a healthy manner. I think it dealt with it really well. And just kind of this theme of healing and healing for yourself before you kind of let other people into that. I would highly recommend this book. If you haven't read Abby Jimenez, I think you can jump in anywhere. I do think that this is kind of like a series, but not really a series, similar to the way Ali Hazelwood's Love Theoretically, Love on the Brain, and The Love Hypothesis all kind of exist in like the same universe. I think this is the same kind of thing. And I think we see at least one of the couples that came before probably in this, but that doesn't bother me that much if they're just kind of like have a cameo like appearance of sorts. Justin is wonderful. I think he's a really, really great male main character. He's just so sweet and kind and just like the kind of person that I think women should want to be with. Like he is just like the epitome of like a good partner. I now know that the next time I want to read something contemporary romance, Abby Jimenez is my girl. And then I listened to Finale, the final book of the Caraval series. And I also talked about this in my best and worst books of the month. And this one clocked in as my worst. And I don't think it was horrible. I just feel like this series just kind of got progressively worse as it went on. I really, really enjoyed Caraval. I thought it was a lot of fun, but the more the series moved away from the game and moved away from Caraval, the worse it got. The more I just felt like it was trying to do too much. I didn't love the Fates plot as much as I liked just the magic and legend and all of that was so much stronger for me. I also tended to prefer Scarlett as a narrator. I don't really love Tella as a character, and while they both have parts in this, it still felt very strongly Tella for me. Even though Scarlett did have a huge role to play in this, it just still felt very strongly like a Tella book to me. I think because so much of like the romance side of it focused in on Tella's decision about which man she was going to end up pursuing. I also just found that I wasn't completely satisfied with the ending of this book. It felt, and I feel this sometimes, especially in like young adult books and young adult fantasy, that there's like all the, there's this big problem that they're trying to fix and like nothing they're doing is working, and it just appears to be this like impossible task that they're trying to solve this problem. And then they get to the solution and it was almost too simple. It was too simple of a solution for this giant problem that supposedly existed. And I struggle with that at times, and I just felt like the ultimate solution to the problem just wasn't all that satisfying. I'm very curious to know from other people who have read this series and have read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series as well, on whether or not you think I would like it. If you're someone like me who really liked Caraval and then kind of fell off the longer the series went on, if it's even worth my time in continuing that series, especially considering I don't love the Fates plot as much, and I think that is the focus of Once Upon a Broken Heart. I know it's about Jax, which I don't mind Jax as a character. By the end of it, I just felt like it was trying to do too much as a book with what Caraval was and bringing in the Fates plot. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you think it is still worth my time to spend precious reading time continuing this second series, the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. And then finally, I read Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. I don't entirely know how you say her last name. I was honestly pretty disappointed with this book. I think if I hadn't already filmed my most disappointing books of the year, by the time I finished this probably would have made the list. I just didn't enjoy this the way I was expecting to. And I feel like I've definitely been struggling lately with romantasy and with like really getting into a romantasy plot. And this one was just... There were so many people who loved this book. Like, so many people said that this was one of the best books they read of the year. It's one of the best romantasies they've read in a really long time. And there is zero chemistry in this book. Like, none. Like, these two characters, it's it is just not believable to me that they have any actual chemistry with each other at all. Like, this is a book where it's like, you're telling me that they're attracted to each other, but I don't feel it. They don't make sense as a match. They just don't vibe together in the way that I would actually like want them to. And there's like no tension in this book. And if you're telling me I'm gonna read a romantasy book about a witch and a witch hunter, there should be tension. And I don't like, it doesn't have to be spicy to give me tension. There's just none of that present in this book. And it just like kind of breaks my heart because I wanted to love this so much. And I was excited that the sequel was coming out this year. And now I'm like, I don't know, probably not going to read the sequel, probably not going to continue with this. This is one of those books that makes me feel like I can't trust the recommendations that I get off the internet, and particularly recommendations that come off of Book Talk, because people over there are just like fawning all over this thing, and it is just not that good. It really wasn't that good. It just breaks my heart because I really want to find a good romantasy series that like there's gonna be tension, it's gonna be steamy, it doesn't need to be spicy. In fact, I generally prefer books that like they can have spice, but I don't like spice to be the predominant focus of the book, if that makes sense. So it can be spicy, but it doesn't have to be. But something where there's gonna be tension, and like if it's gonna be enemies to lovers, like make there be that tension. And this just wasn't it. And I can't just sit here and say it's because, oh, it's young adult. That's no excuse to have no chemistry between your two main characters. And also the like weird side romance with the brother that she has, who's like her best friend, was also just like very weird to me. Like it just didn't make any sense to me, like the decisions that she ultimately made around that. And it's just another example of like a book that just like the characters fell really flat for me, and you know it when like something that's supposed to be heartbreaking happens and you're not heartbroken. You're just like, oh, okay. Like, I guess that's how it ends. And like, I get it. Like if you're into it and like people will talk about the ending, it's just like, oh my God, you just like tore my heart out with the ending. These characters were very one-dimensional for me. I would also say the plot is like very meandering at times and just very repetitive at times. I feel like this did not need to be as long as it is. Like I think you could have accomplished the same thing in a much shorter amount of time. It's just kind of a circular around with each character. The plot is essentially Rune needs to get the information from Gideon, keeps trying to get the information from him, fails, tries again, fails, tries again, fails. And that just happens like 3 times on a loop with him. And then it's Gideon needs to find out if she has any scars on her, tries, fails, doesn't do it. And it's just like this circular plot the whole time. And for me with romantasy, I need to feel a very strong like fantasy plot to it as well that has to hook me in, because I am a predominantly fantasy reader that sometimes dabbles in romantasy, and this just didn't give it as well with the fantasy subplot either. So I think if I had finished this book by the time that I made my best and worst books of each month video, this might be my worst book that I read in December. This might out top Finale, because I got a lot more enjoyment out of Finale than I did from this, to be honest. I also just like the twist at the end. Okay, it wasn't like, I don't know. I think a lot of people said they saw it coming. I didn't see it coming. By the end, I just didn't particularly care that was what had happened, because again, like character relationships, not just the romance, but I found just all the character relationships to just feel a little bit hollow throughout the entire book, whether that was the friendships, the romance, all of them just didn't feel like they were fully fleshed out or something. That's everything I read in December. Like I said, it was a relatively short reading month. I'm hoping to have a much more successful reading month in January. I usually do. I find that I'm really, really motivated at the beginning of the year to read, and I'm just kind of setting aside a lot of time to read. So hopefully that will continue into January. December is always kind of a weird month because you just want to do other things. You want to sit down and watch watch a Christmas movie or go to a Christmas party and all of those other things that's going on around the holidays. But it was a fairly successful reading month. I would say I liked half of the books that I read and one kind of mid-tier book and one book that I didn't enjoy that month. But I am so excited to get started in the reading year for 2025. I can't believe it's another reading year and I'm so excited. So if you like this and you want to follow along with my reading year in 2025, please hit the subscribe button and hit thumbs up on this video. Thank you.